I guess it's time to finally complete this unholy trilogy. Korekiyo, I love the character before his bizarre development. Mikan, I couldn't care less for her, but her presentation in the main story just made me feel a lot dirtier, and I kinda ended up hating the writers for it. You know who that leaves us with. That's right, it's everyone's favorite actual little girl, Kotoko Utsugi. I'm kidding, it's Celestia Ludenberg. On this channel, I've made the unfortunate decision of making a video on Korekiyo Shinguji and my gripes with the character. On paper, this shouldn't be too bad, as tons of videos are made on Danganronpa every day. Only problem is that the Kyo vid is by far my most popular video. And don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly grateful for all the support and should make it more obvious, but the popularity of that one video means that eventually I'd have to create a video on a character I genuinely dislike in Danganronpa. This isn't some wishy-washy, ooh, the writing made me hate them later on. No, Celestia Ludenberg is a character I really just didn't enjoy. I mean, she's French and German. What is there to like? Irony! But genuinely, when you meet Celestia Ludenberg on your quote-unquote first day at Hope's Peak Academy, there's just something that rubbed me the wrong way with her. I hate to say it, but here the goth Lolita design was just not hitting. Additionally, she's the ultimate gambler, a talent I never really got or cared too much about because is she just really lucky or something? I know that she's a really good liar, but a lot of her aspects just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, or I didn't really care about her in the prologue. I know she has a very dedicated fan base, which I'm sure doesn't only include certain male members from the Danganronpa subreddit. Certain people definitely want a person like Celestia Ludenberg in their life, and while I totally understand and respect these people, I personally don't see the appeal and would rather look for a woman that doesn't treat me like some bizarre lapdog as seen with Hifumi. Keep in mind that as I'm writing down all of this, I've never actually played through Celeste's free time events, so my knowledge on her is very limited to the story and certain interactions from the Ultimate Town development plan. Who knows, the FTEs might actually change my opinion on her in a similar way to Mukuro or Mikan. What? So even though I've completed all her free time events, I feel like I've just been pranked. None of the interactions actually made me enjoy her character more. Everyone was just as cryptic as the last. Instead of some big reveal or hopeful declaration of friendship, Celestia just pranks you by telling you that she's pregnant with your child. I am not making this up. Throughout these FTEs, Makoto is trying to unveil the mystery of Celestia's actual identity, which he fails miserably. The final interaction ends with Makoto saying that he guesses he can call her a friend, but she's one friend that he needs to be careful with. This all leads me to believe that maybe the writers never intended for Celeste to be a survivor. She's a girl who'll never open up to anyone, and this probably just forces her into an even more intense isolation from the outside world, deluding herself to the point that she doesn't even question her European origins anymore. Celestia Ludenberg is trapped in a vicious cycle of lying and delusion, which forces her to find peace in unconventional ways away from anyone that attempts to help her out. While that could be pretty cool, it also makes me sad because if her death was planned from the beginning, it meant that she'd given up on escaping as soon as the game started, and Junko's whole despair thing got to her really quickly. But I'll come back to that later. Let's actually get into the FTEs. During the first event, Celeste tells Makoto of the perfect gambling strategy, which is actually just luck. That's right, during this first free time event, Celeste just rants about how luck is the most important thing a gambler can have. And she admits that when she was born, she was given incredibly good luck, a skill that she wants to test out against Makoto one day, seeing as he's the ultimate lucky student. After that interaction, she just leaves in a typically formal way, showing that yeah, she's probably not going to open up to Makoto anytime soon. There's not much to note here except for the whole putting lucks against one another thing, which is kind of what happens in chapter 3. There's no real way to tell what Celeste was thinking during the third trial, but I'm sure that she believed she could leave the school with all the money because she'd already won so many games before, including games where she barely even knew the rules. While most of her interactions are cryptic, it's nice to know that there are certain consistent themes with her character, such as Celeste's competitive sides and her overconfidence when it comes to luck. The second event is just as short as the first, and it once again reveals Celeste's pride and confidence when it comes to her gambling. She asks Makoto if he's ever played Mahjong, and when he answers no, she begins the Family Guy cutaway into that one time she beat two dudes at Russian Roulette Mahjong. She relishes in the fact that they were incredibly distraught with their defeat, considering it one of her fonder memories, which, yeah, sadism, I guess. That's probably in character for Celeste. This free time event is unsurprisingly not that interesting. It doesn't reveal much about her as a character because it's literally just a Family Guy cutaway. The most notable part is her opponents in Russian Roulette Mahjong, which is an insane concept by the way, who were a fierce old man and a silver-haired boy with the devil's luck. The latter of these characters being a reference to the Mahjong gambling manga series Akagi, making this event literally just a Family Guy cutaway. But that's just a theory. The third event is my personal favorite because it actually tries to make Celeste more interesting beyond lying Lolita Griffin Griffin. It starts off with her repeating her own name out loud, an incredibly bizarre action that's noticed by Makoto as he's asking why she's doing it. She tells him that she's never tired of hearing her own name, which is a totally normal thing for a person to do. My friends and I love reciting our full government names in the mirror. Celestia just like me, for real, on God, no cap. Makoto asks her why she chose that name because it obviously can't be real, especially if she's Japanese. She tries to force the fact that her French father and German mother gave her that name, which doesn't help alleviate suspicion at all, but Makoto gives up on this investigation because Celestia is too good at being delusional. So he moves on and asks her where she was born, to which she responds Tochigi, one of Japan's 8 landlocked prefectures. This is very much an allegory for how Celeste's delusion forced her to be locked in her own head, unable to make meaningful connections. She was born in the capital of the prefecture, Utsunomiya, which was deduced by Makoto, a person as smart as an elementary school student, according to Celeste. Ignoring the fact that she still looks down heavily on Makoto, she tells him that she misses her hometown's famous gyoza and she'll never be able to eat them because of the whole killing games. So in typical shonen protagonist fashion, he tries to reassure her. Instead of giving the whole don't lose hope speech, she cuts him off and reiterates that they won't make it out and he should just give up. If he doesn't, it'll only lead to murder, which promptly ends the interaction. So this event is hands down the best one for multiple reasons. First, it sets up the less than healthy relationship between the two characters, as Makoto keeps interrogating Celeste on her origins, and she always denies any possible progress. Second, it also sets up Celeste's ruthless and more villainous side to her. She never once compliments Makoto, opting instead to compare his intelligence to one of a 7-year-old, and straight up tells Makoto to give up on escaping this killing game because none of this matters. Nobody will make it out alive, and those who do will turn to murder. All of this makes her an early foil to Makoto, as she actively goes against all he believes in. She refuses to cooperate and seemingly won't hesitate to kill, things that Makoto would openly hate if he wasn't such a good leader. While I enjoyed this free time event, it probably made me dislike the character even more because, let's face it, this entire time she's been cryptic or just flat out unbearable towards Makoto. Don't get me wrong, being a complete asshole doesn't mean unredeemable. Fuyuhiko is a character I disliked for the first few chapters, but he got his comeuppance by moving on from that. Celeste doesn't get that luxury though. For the most part, she just remains a cardboard cutout that says a few lines if you press a button. This is shown in her remaining FTEs. FTE 4 details how Celeste won an important shogi tournament despite not knowing how the game worked. Makoto questions how that can even happen, but Celeste reassures the validity of this event, chalking her victory up to simple beginner's luck. That's right, after a very good FTE, we're back to the cutaways. Not much to know here because it's pretty much the same thing as the first two. Free time event 5 starts off great, as Celeste will reveal the biggest crisis she ever faced in her gambling life. Makoto is curious, so he listens well as she goes on about the King of Liars competition, a game where upon entering you're stripped of your money, assets, property, everything. You have to use your wisdom, cunning, and luck to battle through every challenge. Makoto interjects by telling her that the whole experience seems pretty intense, to which she responds that the whole competition was not important. The crisis was when she spilled tea on her clothes and when she feared a stain wouldn't come off. I'm sorry, what the fuck? She tells him that she had to win faster because she couldn't risk losing her favorite dress, something that understandably flabbergasts Makoto and ends a bizarre and somewhat blue ballsy event. Yeah, this event isn't anything to write home about. The last event, as I previously mentioned, starts off with Celeste inviting Makoto to her room because apparently she's pregnant with his son. Haha, very random, exly funny moment. They quickly move on though, and Celeste announces that Makoto is now C rank. What is this, Fire Emblem? Basically, Celeste ranked people from A to F, with most people being D. If you're at F, she gets a hitman to kill you. If you're at C, then you aren't completely irrelevant to her, and you're basically knighted by her. That's what happens to Makoto, meaning that you now have the right to tip your fedora and call her m'lady. She tells him that if he's a good submissive lapdog, he may become the first B rank in a network of knights that apparently goes across the globe. Makoto is reluctant to do that, but he still admits that he might understand her more despite this free time event being among the weirdest. So what have we learned thus far? Celeste will always look down on you and won't open up to you, even if you completed all her free time events, a feat that with any other character would automatically make you trauma buddies. She is very sus when it comes to her origins, and you'll never be able to figure out what it is until she orchestrates a double murder later on, and she's probably just a Family Guy character. With all of this information, you can't really grow attached to her, and it's a somewhat boring development to such a mysterious character. So what if, to spice it up, we just chalked it up to Celeste being a liar? What if this entire time everything you had been told about her was a complete fabrication? That would be interesting and in character considering her title as the Queen of Lies. Not only would it be more interesting considering you now have to filter out the lies from the truth, it also makes you automatically more skeptical of her, making it a lot more interesting than all the other characters where you just take everything at face value. I'm sure there's some truth in her stories, but the chances are they've been buried so deep below the lies that even she can distinguish one from the other. All this would make her more interesting considering how little amount of info there is on her even after all the free time events. My theory with Celestia is that she was never actually a person. From the start, she played her role as the Queen of Liars, the ultimate gambler, and she knew that this thing was the end for her, so she gave up on escaping as there was no way to keep gambling. She was never going to bond with any of the other students because of her superiority complex, which forces her to take a more distant role when it comes to interactions. I haven't gotten into this just yet, but during the first chapter, Celeste becomes a de facto leader because she seems responsible and calculative, something that is seen throughout the free time events as she's never actually letting her guard down. The most you learn about her is that she misses her hometown's gyoza, and that's only used to tell you that she doesn't need to go back to the outside world. Celeste opts to tell others about her gambling exploits because it allows her to avoid getting into her actual life. She doesn't mind not going back to the outside world because she's allowed to live her fantasies in Hopeseek Academy. So when you look at Celeste and try to find an actual person, you won't find much, which was my mistake. Instead, I should have been looking at Celeste as a facade, a bizarre bit close to anyone but her and used to move the plot forward. I dislike Celeste because I just see her as a filler, someone so deluded that she can't grow to become a better person. Now that we've heard that take, let's put all of that info into the main story where she commits her most heinous act yet.
Celestia Ludenberg, god damn it!
It was previously mentioned that Celeste is the de facto leader in the first chapter, and that's pretty much her only role here. Because she seems so mature, she's able to have enough influence to set the rules that no one should leave their rooms at night, which doesn't help considering 3 people died in this chapter. Among the students, she was probably the first to adapt to their new life in the school considering what was waiting for her outside. Those familiar with Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc know that Chapter 1's motive were videos that showed every student's loved ones being in danger in one way or another. In this game, we know of the contents of Makoto and Sayaka's videos, but thanks to Ultra Despair Girls, we get a bit more info on every other victim of Monokuma. In Celeste's videos, the one to appear was her cat, Grandbois Chéri Ludenberg. I am not making this up. Whereas other students had family or other close friends, Celeste had a cat, a non-human being, showcasing once again how detached Celestia Ludenberg is from our world. With this info, we can probably understand why Celeste was so quick to adapt to the killing game. Nobody cares for her outside of the school, making it easier for her to care less about everyone inside the school. When Mukuro gets publicly impaled, she just states that those unwilling to adapt deserve to die, which really just displays a lack of empathy. In a similar fashion, when Leon is sentenced to a punishment, instead of sympathizing with him, she instead points out the flaws in logic, letting her look down on someone even as they're about to die. It's really easy to hate this character if you haven't noticed. The next chapter follows a similar trend of her saying out-of-pocket things, as instead of feeling down like everyone else, she remarks that whoever's in charge of the killing game must be smart and powerful. After exploring the new parts of the school and finding out there's no exit, she just nonchalantly accepts it, saying that she enjoys this extra space and doesn't mind the occasional class trial. If you couldn't already tell, she's definitely killer material. This is solidified when we see her growing bond with Ufumi in chapter 2 as she snaps at him for not making an iced frappuccino that's up to her standards. When she snaps at him, a more brash and violent side is revealed, which initially surprises the other characters because it goes against everything previously established. She doesn't do much in this chapter either, as most of the attention is put on the bromance between Mondo and Taka, which ultimately ends in Chihiro's death. During this event, Celeste is the one to come in clutch, as her account of events allows Makoto to deduce that Mondo was the killer thanks to a stupid slip-up on his part. Even if she somehow managed to save everyone's life, she still is as cold as ever when the 2 manliest men break down next to her. This leads to chapter 3, the part of the game that actually allows me to justify my hatred of Celestia Ludenberg. The third chapter's motive is money. Whoever kills someone and gets away with it wins $10 million in cash. Look, I'm not saying that having the gambler kill for money is incredibly obvious, but come on, it was a little bit expected, right? While money is supposedly the main motive, for most of the chapter, the main force behind the conflict is Alter Ego, this AI created by Chihiro before he died. Both Kiyotaka and Hifumi want this AI for different reasons, which already creates a divide in the group. Celeste, being the cold and calculative killer, decides to use Alter Ego to manipulate Hifumi into killing Kiyotaka. This works, and she then chooses to get rid of Hifumi because she can't let anyone leave with the money. I think it's the best time to talk about the victim right now, so let's do that. At this point, Kiyotaka has just seen his best friend be turned to butter and is struggling to cope with it. The Alter Ego AI has given him the strength to go on, and this could be the start of a brand new Kiyotaka, as he has now inherited Mondo's drive in the form of a weird gimmick. While it's in a very roundabout way, the potential for character growth is definitely here, which is why it sucks that he's off so early in a similar manner to Hiyoko in the second game. Taka definitely had the potential to leave his old self behind to become a decent survivor, but I guess having Yasuhiro is more important. Hifumi is similar to Kiyotaka in that he never really gets a chance to grow as a character. For the most part, he's just kind of being weird in the background. I think it says a lot that his most meaningful relationships in the main story are with Celeste and an Alter Ego, 2 characters that really can't be asked to care about him. This is especially seen with how Celeste easily manipulates him into killing Taka for her. Of course, this is Danganronpa, where some characters will definitely have more screen time than others, but in this game, I feel like to really appreciate a character, you have to dig deeper than in the other games. Even through free time events, a lot of the info is left up to interpretation, which is kind of sad because, in my opinion, this makes the first game's cast a lot less likable than in the other games. 2 of the characters that died in this chapter feel like cardboard cutouts, which is a pretty big disappointment for the halfway point of the game. So the trial begins, and the main suspect is Yasuhiro because of all the the Robo Justice shenanigans, which just felt unnecessary, and Hifumi's last words, which were just Yasuhiro. But in a shocking turn of events, it turns out that Yasuhiro is actually Celeste's real name. Yes, Celeste was actually a reverse weeaboo all along. Taiko Yasuhiro made a fatal slip-up to let the others know that she was aware of Kiyotaka's murder during the investigation despite there being no BDA yet. During the class trial, as Taiko is being forced into a corner, she loses her temper completely, and the gothic Lolita Queen of Liars mask slips. She's not losing her mind because she's being found out for murder. No, it's because people are learning about her true identity. It's pretty astounding that her priorities lie there, but hey, I guess she really just loves her first world problems. She confesses to the murder, and the class trial ends, where she reveals that adapting to their new lives was a whole lie because more than anything she wanted to leave the school. To keep gambling? No. To go live in Europe with vampire slaves. Yeah, she orchestrated a double murder to buy a castle in Hungary or something. I think this motivation is what makes me dislike this character more. None of her motivations actually make sense. Everything she says has to be interpreted with a mountain of salt, and not only is she completely delusional, she's also incredibly selfish, willing to sacrifice Hifumi, a boy that respects her immensely, and Kiyotaka, a man that is unable to be corrupted. Even if she wanted to leave the school, I still believe that she wouldn't have minded being trapped in it, as naturally she wants to stay away from the plebs or society in general. Another thing I didn't enjoy about Celeste was that there was nothing remotely relatable about the motive. The lack of significant background info on her already makes it hard enough to care for her as a character, but her whole motivation of getting money to move into a castle is so absurd that it doesn't make the player feel anything. Whereas for Mondo, players witness men cry for each other in pure despair. Chapter 3 just leaves you feeling empty. Celestia was never a character that you could truly care for, which makes it even sadder that the best part of this trial is the execution, in which Celeste is set up to die in a fire akin to witch burning, only to get hit by a fire truck, a much more common way to die. Taiko died as she lived, a normal high schooler lost to her delusions of Albanian heritage. After making this video, I just want to say that my opinions on Celeste as a character have not changed. I still dislike her and don't see a world in which she could have survived because there was never anything from the start. She worked fine as a foil to Makoto with the whole adapting to the killing game thing, but when that was revealed to be a lie after the mask slipped, none of it really mattered. While it's interesting to consider every possible lie she could have said, ultimately Taiko Yasuhiro served her purpose of being fodder to the killing game pretty well, and I don't feel bad about her execution at all. If she was created to be hated, well, that worked out pretty well, I'd say. If not, well, damn, this bitch empty. With that, I thank you for watching, like and subscribe for more life-changing content, and goodbye.